anticipation here.
I think we could very well see a bunch of Krull come out. I think a lot of teams have really started to pick this up, and it's why we've been seeing it more and more frequently. The silence combo, if it's available, should be prioritized by a lot of teams, but a lot of that's going to come down to the first couple of picks and bans. You know, is Baron going to get let through? Is the Idris going to be available? Like, those are the big things that, for me in North America, I'm going to be watching on is, you know, how the teams deal with the first couple of bans and the first picks.
What's your expectation of the priorities in this series, Suijay? What, like, first couple of picks and bans, where do you expect these to go? Because we've had different directions in previous drafts.
Yeah, for Cloud9, definitely, like, they prioritize a lot of Idris, and that's something that Immortals prioritize too. On top of that, Lyra, Grace, all big priorities for Cloud9 and Immortals. So it'll be interesting to see who's going to get what and how the draft competition is going to turn out.
Yeah, and I think the first couple of picks are definitely going to kind of determine a lot in terms of playstyles. Immortals with a first ban onto a Catherine. It's not something we usually see as a first ban.
Yeah, because in the past 5 drafts, Cloud9 has played a lot of Catherine with Idris, so Cath makes a lot of sense because Gabe is very proficient and good on Cath, so I think that's why the Cath ban came out here.
All right, well, Lyra and Vox going to follow that up, as well as a Baron ban from Cloud9 Bacon. Where do you think Immortals go with this next ban?
Likely onto something in the jungle. They could try and take away the Baptiste or the Samuel, but I feel like, you know, those may not be great bans against Joseph, so it is going to go into the Kashka, which is a much more I Love Joseph oriented pick there. So just trying to take that away from him, not allow him to have that hard carry early game powerhouse that we've seen him use so frequently.
Yeah, now looking towards Cloud9, they have to pick something up that's actually going to define the playstyle of their composition here. Obviously, Vox can kind of fit into most compositions, but once you get to this bottom half of the draft, you really start to select how you're going to play the game.
Yeah, I think Gabe likes Lance if Cath or Grace or Lyra aren't open. Oh, wow, they go for Fortress.
Ooh.
That's a very interesting pick here.
Yeah, definitely a very aggressive pick coming out from Cloud9. We've seen little sprinklings of Fortress, but not a lot, and instantly we see Immortals lock in the Kestrel and the Samuel. This has been a very, very fast draft coming out from Immortals.
Yeah, they definitely knew what they wanted on this one. This is a composition that beat them in the challenge battles, so, you know, maybe learning a thing or two from that matchup with Hammers and deciding to now run this against Cloud9. But you know, one of the interesting things was that was run against an Idris each time. So it's not quite the same composition that they're up against, but it is a very counter-engage composition, which is very strong. You know, but the Fortress pick this early in the draft really kind of tells you that it's going to be a heavy engage composition, and the Krull coming out fits right into that. Yeah,
the Fortress is kind of like we are going to be hard engaging on you, and a Krull fits that beautifully as well, with alongside the Vox that can follow up into those team fights. So now looking at these compositions, definitely feels like Immortals are going to be trying to play at arm's length, whereas Cloud9 want the exact opposite to happen. How are we feeling about the win conditions of these teams? Do we feel like either team has an advantage coming into this?
The key is going to be the vision game. If Krull is able to jump onto Samuel or Kestrel and get his passive or stun, then Immortals going to have a really hard time. If they have really good vision and they play the distance game, then I think Immortals is going to win this game, because their comp is really strong late game.
Okay, what are your thoughts, Bacon? Like, is this Krull going to be enough to be as aggressive as Cloud9 needs?
It's really going to rely on... I actually like the Fortress pick a lot here, because it's now going to rely on that extra movement speed, because, like Suijay was saying, the composition of Immortals can kite extremely well and can keep a team at bay. But when you have so much movement speed, Krull's perk combined with the Fortress providing extra movement speed while moving towards the target that he marks can allow this Krull to get on point and be able to find its mark.
He is going to be moving like a bullet train in this game. We'll see if he's going to be able to run down his opponents. It's time to get on into this game. But let us know whether you're an Immortals or Cloud9 fan using that hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter. But without further ado, it's time to jump onto the Halcyon Fold for Immortals up against Cloud9.
Thank you very much, guys. My name is George, joined by the wonderful Scoundrel, and I gotta say, this is a nice, interesting first week for Immortals to come into the VG8. Coming up against Cloud9 is going to be one of their toughest oppositions.
Yeah, and this is a super interesting, super aggressive composition from Cloud9. The analysts really touched on it well. This is kind of going to have to either win hard early or they have a very coordinated plan of attack in the late game. There isn't really any other button than go hard here for C9. That's kind of what a Fortress enables. There's no peel back here. There's not much peel back for the Vox. This is literally go in, take out either T-Tigers or Zeo very, very quickly. And I imagine, because Zeo's going to hit that threshold of having the weapon power to give him the instantaneous active camo eventually, it will be T-Tigers as the primary focus if this game goes the distance.
Go hard or go home, and Immortals already off to a strong start, sealing away one of the fronts from Joseph. His healing camp and the Elder Treant, so already getting a small advantage there. However, Old School was able to farm up that lane, push that lane in rather quickly with the help of Gabe Vizzle. And I think it's going to be more laning phase now, I think, orientated. Nick Scoundrel, I've got to clear something up real quick, because I've had a few comments saying that I sound like you, and I just want to put it out there right now. This isn't 2x Scoundrels casting, this is Jaws.
Are you salty then?
A little bit, but at the same time, I do enjoy listening.
I don't think we sound anything like each other, but hey, that's just me.
Absolutely not.
I want to touch on something interesting that happened at the start of the game. You touched on it when you said that they went in and took the forward camp. They actually trio invaded that forward camp and allowed Max Green to hold and soak the lane, simply because they didn't want to go for a fight around the Elder Trio at level 2. They didn't want to have to make any face checks towards the brush when Cruel obviously hits level 2. Big spike for him because he can chase down those ranged targets a little bit more readily, especially with that speed boost from that brush. So they basically said, we don't want that to happen. We're going to trio invade. Yes, we might lose some lane pressure. And C9 weren't actually able to punish that by going for the backs of Immortals, because Max Green was holding the lane there, so they had full vision. If that was going to happen, they would have backed and potentially caught them out. So it was a really nice move by Immortals early on. And it looks like they are hyper-farming ambient gold onto Zeo here, which is really interesting. I think they're trying to push the item spikes on the weapon power Kestrel very quickly. Kestrel has, she's one of the few weapon power carries that when you get those item spikes, they are just such a massive deal for her, as opposed to Vox, who can scale up quite nicely from Poison Shiv. She really needs to be hitting 2 to 3 items as soon as she can.
Well, Cloud9 are going to have to back off as T-Tigers makes his way towards that lane. But like you said, a lot of ambient gold on DNZO will get him up and running a lot quicker than you might imagine. And I'm sure might imagine Cloud9 as well. However, I love Joseph outside T-Tigers. This might does come through on him. He goes fairly low, but he's going to use those boots to kite away. Brightball does come down to disengage from Gabe Vizzle. Now hitting those limishers over the wall. Joseph was almost in a lot of trouble, almost got stunned up, but they jump straight back on him. Take the first blood. That first blood goes over to Max Green. Old School trying to find the kill on DNZO, tops and dashes forward, ends up picking up the kill. But T-Tigers did manage to find Gabe Vizzle off the end of it, and there goes Max Green with a 2-piece.
Here we go. Immortals off to a flying start. T-Tigers did face check Joseph there, but it wasn't quite enough. Wasn't enough time spent, and Immortals obviously really rallied around the Samuel, as you saw Max Green immediately there with the heal, able to peel back, give him the necessary health to survive that Cruel Smite. And that's what Lyra can do. She's really good at sort of I guess, dousing those kind of face check punishment scenarios. That was a face check from T-Tigers. It probably shouldn't have happened, but Lyra really sort of douses those kind of situations and makes them a lot more forgiving for the character or the hero that face checks in that scenario. Also want to point out that Zeo picking up the healing camp was really important because it kept Old School there for a little bit longer, allowed T-Tigers to capitalize after he picked up the kill onto Vizzle.
Yeah, that Lyra is going to be key in his composition, especially when it comes late. The guys on the desk did touch on it. And you just did as well at the start. All in composition from C9. They just want to run at people. But with Max Green having that bright bulwark, it's going to be fairly important for their comp. Now, they have found Joseph again. But their boots are going to get popped by him. Oh, no, sorry. It's just the speed up here from Gabe Vizzle. Gabe Vizzle actually trying to just dissuade Max Green. But Joseph might just go down. Oh, that Lyra sigil almost finishes him off. And Max Green now will rotate. And Immortals with just firm pressure and control over this lane and just over this game right now.
This is what I really like from Immortals because of their composition. They are trying to bring C9 out of a scenario where they can take a gank or an invade into the jungle and pick off T-Tigers when he's weak by himself. By bringing Samuel into the lane early on, which is a rotation that is made very commonly with a Samuel, to siege the first turret, it's basically forcing C9 to make the decision between just sitting back, trying to clear the waves, or going all in an open sort of situation where you're not likely to catch anyone out, especially pre-6, which is making it hard for C9 to actually find early aggression with this Cruel and this Fortress. Yes, at level 6, there might be a situation where they can do that a bit more readily, and I think they'll be waiting for that level 6 spike on Isle of Joseph to start some fights, but Immortals are drawing C9 to the lane, where they have the open playing field, which is where Samuel really functions well, Jaws.
That he does. He'd just like to see his Tigers. And T-Tigers has done a fantastic job thus far. He's got 100% kill participation. In fact, all of the members of Immortals do. True teamwork. But Joseph has picked up that tension bow and doing cruel things. Sitting up in that top brush, waiting for something to happen. Has just ding level 6 as well. So we'll have From Hell's Heart. But Immortals, they know this. They're aware. So they're going to play a little bit more safely. Protecting DNZO and T-Tigers in that backline. That's Max Green's primary objective.
And again, Joseph now hitting level 6 means that C9, they've got the tension bow spike. They also have a reflex block on him, so he can potentially get through an active camo stun if it's there, or obviously, maybe more importantly, making sure he's not peeled back by T-Tiger's Oblivion, which is one of the main forms of CC post 6 here for Immortals. So he's already picked that one up and ready to go. His Gave Muzzle actually looks like he's working straight towards some armor to at least tank up some of those shots from Zio. Unsure if he's going to go towards an Atlas Pauldrons with that. Unless Zio goes for a Tornado Trigger, which is something that a Kestrel could do here. It's not something that's going to be super relevant just yet. I would like to see T-Tigers think about his own reflex block, though. I think that's going to be so important, as he should be the primary target you feel for C9 when they try and force these fights with the Cruel. But I do like that this is a big item spike that C9 maybe need to play around now, and also that level spike with the Cruel. But, oh my god, turret's just gone down. C9 left that for dead.
Yeah, literally just left it. Like, they did rotate rounds to the tri-brush and upwards just to try and defend it, but the constant pressure from T-Tigers and DNZO too much for that tower to stand up any longer, so will end up falling. And Immortals now, 2,000 gold lead at 7 minutes, not something to scoff at whatsoever. Now, what are they going to do with it here? Cloud9 are going to put a lot of their own damage on that turret. That Smite will do a fair bit if they want to start something here. T-Tigers pushing forward. Joseph. Well, that passive nice and stacked, so he's very, very speedy, but Immortals are just going to chase him off for the moment.
Yeah, just using their range advantage against C9. That's one of the issues that C9 will have. They are always going to get outranged by this competition, so they have to do something like this and make a play.
Ooh, Bright Bulwark was used to make sure Cloud9 just could not find DNZO. You saw as soon as they come out that brush, T-Tigers disengaged, so did DNZO. The team right now seems on perfect form of communication. And now what is it to do? Do Immortals just keep poking down these turrets because it's working for them thus far? Cloud9 need to make something happen.
They really do. They are under the pressure now. Going for something like a gold miner, bringing the attention towards them, forcing Immortals to make the move could be the play here. But the problem is by going for gold miner or trying to force a neutral objective, so you still have that range disadvantage to contend with. The only way you deal with a range disadvantage for C9 is by finding those opportunities to engage with Cruel. It is now level 8 on Cruel. I don't think Joseph's had an opportunity to use an ultimate. It in part plays to the fact that, I mean, let's be honest, Immortals have played a really, really safe game here. They've made sure T-Tigers is pretty much looked after for the most part. And it's also because I don't think C9 have been aggressive enough with this competition. Maybe they haven't found the opportunities to, but they need to step up that aggression. They do have the out of a late game, that a single target pick on a late game team fight could actually win it outright for them. But again, you've kind of missed a large opportunity here to just go for the aggressive move. They are going to take Goldmine. Immortals carefully pacing around it. I don't think they'll get there in time.
Collected.
Absolutely not, especially as Joseph had the smite. That'll be a nice chunk of health for him, a nice chunk of change for C9. Now, Infusion's on Old School, Infusion's on Joseph. Let's go. They want to fight, they want to do it now, but they just need to find that engage. Here, Vizzle maybe just needs to pop attack the pack and pray for the best, because like you said, Joseph's level 8 now. We haven't seen him throw out From Hell's Heart once. We need to see something happen here. We can see Max Green is maybe a little bit caught out, but C9 couldn't see that. Max Green has been such a catalyst to this team as well on Immortals, just spying out that top brush time and time again. You saw him put a Stitch on there, flare after flare after flare. As long as you know where Joseph is, that is exactly the main goal right now. That turret will go down. There will be a disengage here from Cloud9, or at least there's the range advantage from Immortals already showing its true colors. Those colors are full of red, full of pain, and now Cloud9, they're trying to rotate now. What do they do from here at Scandal? Do they just pop the buttons, press all buttons at once, and then just go?
Well, actually, taking that first turret was really important for them, because one of the main ways that you kind of mentioned it very briefly, that actually the Immortals have been doing a really good job of preventing these engages was the vision that Max Green had kept consistently for his team. He'd had really good placements of scout traps, making sure he's flaring out all the brushes, all the danger areas. Actually, this is now an opportunity. C9 going
Tigers might be a little bit stuck there. Does get stunned up with a Hell's Heart, and there we go. There's the first kill, or second even, first kill for Joseph, at least on 2 T-Tigers. They take the the sentry as well, and they'll take a couple of these camps. From Hell's Heart used the most minimal range possible with Scoundrel, but it still ended up working for them.
It's why I really would have liked to have seen a reflex block early on T-Tigers. It's like playing against a Koshka. You do have to respect the fact that if you don't have a reflex block, you're likely to become a target. He's gone for some armor, because it is a double weapon power composition, as we kind of haven't yet touched on, but it is something that's become more and more popular, with Tension Bow being such a good armor-piercing item. It actually makes the double weapon power builds very viable, especially single target. Someone might pick up a Bone Saw at some point, but we'll have to see. Not likely to come out anytime soon, unless I Love Joseph neglects all of his defensive priorities. But that first turret going down, you saw how aggressive that has allowed the C9 team to be now. They can make these moves into jungle because they can push the wave up. It means that Immortals won't be able to rotate as easily. The vision line can be aggressed on a bit more. There's no safe haven where that turret used to be. So now Immortals have to be a bit careful with their positioning, both in and around that top entrance to their jungle where their tier 1 turret used to be. And C9 can keep looking for these engages. That scout trap there is proving that the one that Gabe put down behind the healing camp, that proved to be pretty influential because it did manage to mean that T-Tigers got caught out. And C9 then have used that to build a platform here, and that platform could result in them putting pressure on this game.
Yes, it can. That pressure at the moment is going to be that gold mine there. I'm just going to start it up here. Dienzio and T-Tigers are coming through. That smite came down a little bit early. That's a kill straight onto Gabe Vizzle. They're just going to chase this one out, I feel. That gold miner didn't quite see who it went over to. Broken mid finish. One shot, one kill is going to be narrowly avoided by Joseph, but Old School is going to be the main target here for Immortals. As Rosen's Bouncers doing a fair bit of work, but Old School out of energy. Will end up Sonic zooming away with his last tiny inkling of it. And now Immortals, they do manage to pick up a kill there, but War Treads for Gabe Vizzle now. That's a pretty big buy for him.
Yeah, War Treads, super important. He went for the metal jacket, obviously, with the Atlas Pauldrons having little to zero effect against the Kestrel at this point in time. He's basically looking to jump in. This is Gabe Vizzle's role right now. Force the team into a fight where, you know, they just rush their opponents down. He will body block those glimmer shots for the most part. He'll try and body block Dienzio for the most part, and that will allow I Love Joseph and Old School to focus a singular target. They have both prioritized a little bit of defense against both Samuel with the reflex block coming out there for the Oblivion, because obviously Gabe Vizzle doesn't have his. He doesn't have any form of reflex block. There's no Crucible, which is often considered a pretty crucial item against Samuel. But what I think Gabe Vizzle is relying on is mobility. Fortress is a very mobile hero, and it's going to be up to Old School and Joseph to block their Oblivion themselves. So again, a lot of priority against defending multiple aspects of this Immortals composition, but they have to make it work so well. Gabe Vizzle has to tank those glimmer shots. I Love Joseph and Old School have to coordinate their target, and likely that's going to be T-Tigers, even though he's picked up a bit of armor already. Double Tyrant's Monocle for Dienzio. Broken Myth now for T-Tigers. Some item spikes hit by Immortals themselves.
They're pretty big, but Old School has got that breaking point, which is going to be fairly important for him in these engagements. That Sentry is going to go down again, so only one more life on Immortal Sentry. Something they haven't really committed too many resources to in defending. Yeah. It's very, very hard for them, just because Cloud9, they do want to force Immortals to fight them and come to them, so you can imagine Immortals going, all right, you can have that one for free. It's not too much of an issue. We'll just fight you late game, and we'll fight you from afar. Yeah. Now Cloud9, you can see full domination of the jungle with the wards as well.
One of the issues that I think has been opened up because of that tier 1 turret being almost left by Immortals is the more space you create on the map, the better it is for a dive melee composition, because it gives you more space to chase the enemy down. It gives you more space to find picks. It gives you more space to expand your vision. And vision control in this particular type of game is so important because the more often you can catch your opponent unawares with their poor vision control, the more likely it is for you to be able to find those picks with the Cruel Ultimate or get those jumps onto a particular carry. And you can see Gabe has been so committed to getting offensive vision down with those scout traps. They're going to make an engage happen.
Dancing, prancing, and advancing. Gabe Vizzle on the front line. He still has attack of the pack. Joseph from Hell's Heart is still available to him. Cloud9 very hesitant to make an advance though. Gabe Vizzle though is going to get jumped on by Immortals. 3 members chasing him down now, and now Joseph is going to join the fray. Attack of the pack is going to get popped. Joseph still on the sidelines. From Hell's Heart does go out, but Dienzio is going to block it. The reflex block, they're still kiting backwards. Oblivion is going to come through and sleep one target, and that's going to be Joseph, but it doesn't seem to matter. Old School just dashing forward. Dienzio stuns him up, but that'll be Cloud9 with the ace, with the Crystal Sentry. 15 minutes on the clock. What a perfect time for a Kraken to spawn.
Absolutely. Old School's even going to go and take those back camps away as well. and it was playing right into C9's trap. They baited Immortals forward with their offensive vision line. Immortals knew that heading towards 15 minutes, they had to try and get some control of the Kraken pit on their own side of the jungle at least, because that was necessary for them to be able to then go and sort of then contest Kraken when it spawned. But that baited them into C9's trap. They pulled them closer. C9 found the perfect opportunity to go for a counter engage after Zio got a little bit aggressive with his Glimmer Shot positioning. When C9 found that engage straight onto them, and then fortunately it was limited space for the Immortals composition to kite backwards.
So punishing. T-Tigers even got off the full Oblivion there onto 3 members of Cloud9. 2 of them did block it, but ended up Joseph sleeping in the end. But Old School really came up big. Joseph being more of the catalyst in this game rather than just the all-out aggressor that he kind of wants to be, picking up all those kills. Old School right now is sitting on 4 and 1. That Kraken marching down the lane. Immortals, they need to be able to defend, but we spoke about it before. Their range advantage is going to prove pretty useful against defending against this Kraken. But that turret is going to go down pretty fast with Joseph Smite as well. And now Cloud9, they have got a 2/3 Kraken available to them. Here comes Attack of the Pack. Wait for it's going to come through as well. They're going to target Dienzio. He's going to fall. Oblivion is only going to sleep the tiny baby wolves. In fact, it did sleep Old School as well, sleeping on the job. Now that will be one turret falling. They're still advancing. They're still going to crush this next turret as well. And Scoundrel, I think this is going to be it. Cloud9, they're going to take game number 1 off Immortals.
And that is what these kind of compositions can achieve. It feels like it's even for the most part. Then they find the opportunities to make the dives happen. They take out those targets and snowball so quickly. It's why you have to be alert versus this kind of composition completely 100% of the time, Jaws. I feel like there was one mistake Immortals made. Having that tier 1 turret up, they were really easily able to defend it in the early game because of that range advantage. They didn't quite manage to defend it. They kind of gave it a little bit of a lackluster attention. The vision then dropped from Immortals, and C9 took advantage of vision, and it gave them all the opportunities to find those ganks.
Fantastically well played by C9, and what a nice way to be introduced to the VG8 by them as well. We're going to jump on straight to the desk, though. They're going to break that game down a little bit more.
Well, Immortals are coming into the Vainglory8 with Trial by Fire. Cloud9 making a statement and letting them know why they are the second best team in North America. Phenomenal performance from Cloud9. I want to straight away get on into the analysis of this one. There was one specific fight that really turned everything on its head. Immortals were doing amazingly during the early game, and then this fight happened at the 1440 mark, where C9 turned everything around.
Yeah, it was nice on both teams, and Cloud9 just has such a good engage. You can see here, Max Green uses the War Chest to disengage. He actually turns up the Crucible. The Drifting Dart comes down, so they're fighting into a Samuel Drifting Dart. The Crucible blocks the Crow Ultimate and the Vox Silence, so very well played by Max Green with that Crucible and that timing of that. And things seem to be working out, but the Wolves are blocking all the damage from Samuel, and then Dienzio then gets caught here, isn't able to put a lot of damage on, and then C9 is just juggling the aggro so well. You can see Joseph and Gabe just going back and forth, and then they finally get the kill onto Max Green at the front line, and then they get the ace there. It was so critical, and such a good fountain by Gabe there. I mean, this fight could have gone either way, but just that microplay there resulted in Cloud9 taking the lead here.
Yeah, and you could see at the end of that fight, Old School was on like 16 breaking point stacks once the ultimate set down, and at that point on Vox, you can just skip through everyone and finish everyone off. An exceptional fight from C9, and from that point on, that was kind of the story of how the rest of the fights went as well.
Yeah, it was just, that was really towards the end of the game. There's really only 1 or 2 more fights after that point, as Cloud9, again, so decisive now as a team, where when they have that, once they get that lead, they just are really, really crisp in grabbing the Kraken and then going in and finishing the game. They found another kill at the end to really just solidify it, make sure that there was no chance of Immortals defending this push.
Yeah, and during that game as well, Old School actually managed to get his 3rd triple kill of the season as well. He's racking up those accolades for himself. Definitely played phenomenally in that game, and I'm curious what your guys' opinions are on like how these teams go into the next draft in terms of, like, we mentioned these compositions and how it wasn't necessarily one-sided in the draft, but it was 2 very different playstyles. And clearly the aggressive playstyle won out in this one. Do we feel like Immortals are going to be coming into this next game completely changing up the playstyle, going for something that can kind of go toe-to-toe just a little bit better.
Yeah, I think it wasn't Immortals got first turret. They didn't abuse that. They didn't pressure lane, deny jungle, and put more pressure and be more aggressive against Cloud9. They had like a 1.5 gold lead at that point, and they did not take that. They got the first turret, and they're not using that power spike to their advantage. So I think they need to play more aggressive, and they need to make sure that they're not giving away free gold mine. Cloud9 got a free gold mine at the 9-minute mark, and that's something that they should not be giving up.
Yeah, very reminiscent to what we used to see from Salty Potatoes over in Europe, where they would do so well in the early game, they would get themselves a lead, but then not keep the pressure up. They would ease off a little bit and allow their opponents the opportunity to get back into the game. That's almost exactly what we just saw in that game.
All right, so much more about execution as opposed to the actual draft itself. Does that mean you guys think we could see a very similar draft coming through here as we head on towards Game 2?
We could. It's obviously going to be shaken up a little bit just by the teams being on different sides. You know, both of these teams have different priorities based on if they are A side versus B side. So I wouldn't really be expecting the same composition from Cloud9 because I don't expect an A side Kroll pick. And so that just by virtue of that change up from Cloud9 is going to force Immortals to have to adapt as well.
All right, the Catherine first ban once again coming on through here. Now Immortals having to answer this one. Catherine, over the last couple of weeks, has rocketed in priority when it comes to the draft. This is a captain that has suddenly become very firmly placed in the meta.
Yeah, it's because of her late game power spike, and once she gets Echo and No Wave, Cath is just such a pain to deal with. You have to deal with multiple blocks, and this was a reason why Cloud9 lost in the House and Elite tournament against TSM is because of the Catherine and the amount of blocks that Gabe just needed to have against the Baptiste Catherine combo, for example.
Yeah, it's always difficult to deal with just the sheer amount of silence and CC that comes alongside having a Catherine on your squad. Well, Immortals taking a long time to decide on that ban. They are going to go with a Vox in the end.
Yeah, it was one that they really did have to think about for a while because there's so many options and you have to think more than the 1 or 2 picks ahead. You have to look at it and be like, okay, Grace, Baron, Vox, Idris are all up. You know, which one of those do you take away? Which ones do you think your opponents will then take? And then how are you going to respond to it? And then look into the next couple of bans as well. You have to be thinking so far ahead at the top level of Vainglory when it comes to drafting.
Yeah, you have to think through the entire draft, not just your next maneuver. It's going to be Grace locked in for Cloud9, a first pick that we have seen a great many times across the course of this season, but it's going to be answered with a Baron. Immortals clearly not afraid to lock in that kind of risky carry. You know, we see the conversation about first picking it, or whether that's a wise move or not. We've definitely seen the top teams very confident in doing it, and Immortals going to follow in that suit.
Yeah, and then of course banning the Idris away immediately after that. If you cannot let the Idris get through, if you're going to play this Baron, especially if there's a Grace already on the other side, and then Cloud9 answering with the Lyra ban, making sure that they have the only core healer in the game. Obviously, Adagio is still up, but isn't really being played much right now. The Baptiste pickup, though, this is an interesting one because there's a lot of ways you can prevent the Grace from being able to try and make that big impact with her, both her ultimate and her benediction. You can stop both of those with the Baptiste.
Yeah, and I like Baptiste because Baptiste counters kind of dive heroes. You can like minimize their mobility. And normally melee heroes like Koshka, etc. are really good into Baron, so Baptiste kind of counters that. So it's a really good duo here with having Baron and Baptiste for the picks on B side.
And not only that, but when you have the Grace, you want someone who's going to be diving in with her. Adagio, this is for old school. Yeah. I love his Adagio. He is easily, in my eyes, the best Adagio player in the world. And
Adagio not doing so hot though.
Not doing so hot, but
win rate.
Old School hasn't played it very much.
So maybe he'll be able to bolster those statistics. We'll have to see. Are we expecting something like a Grumpjaw as the final pick? Apparently not. It's going to be a Glaive coming in, but you know, the Adagio Grace with a Grumpjaw is definitely something we've seen a lot in the past. What do you think of this Glaive?
Yeah, this is that double heal, a variant of the double heal compositions that we've used to see be extremely strong. Because of Baron being the pick there, there's no mortal wounds that's going to come out because Baron shouldn't be building a poison shiv. We have seen a couple players try and do it, but not really having the level of success that other Barons have. So now there's not going to be Immortal Wounds available. It looks like Immortals are going to go ahead and flex the Baptiste into the captain position and run this double weapon composition with Krull once again.
Once again, another very aggressive early game composition. This time, it's in favor of Immortals, though. They're the one with the Krull. They're the one that's going to be, as we've discussed with the Krull pick before, they're the one that has to be proactive and make sure that they're making these fights happen as opposed to getting engaged on. Would you say that's a fair assessment of how this composition is going to work out?
Yeah, I think so. And the key is they need to shut down Old School. That's what TSM did when they had Krull Baron, and Cloud9 actually played this similar composition, and they just used Krull and just really shut down Old School in lane. So hopefully we're going to see that in this game.
And how do you play this double heal composition with a glaive instead of Gruntjaw? Because I don't think we've seen this variant this season, or maybe we have once or twice, but give us a little rundown for the viewers.
It's actually fairly similar to any glaive composition. You want to have the glaive go into the middle of the enemy team, afterburn someone out as you're putting the heal onto him, so it gets gift of fire spread to the entire enemy team, and then Adagio can either buff himself or the glaive. It really doesn't matter, and just try and just have that massive amounts of burst damage, and of course glaive's just going to be so durable between having the heals from the Grace and the Adagio throughout team fights.
All right, so all about forcing those team fights, all about making sure that it's happening your way. We'll see whether it can happen their way as it's time to get on into this game. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter. Are you a Cloud9 or Immortals fan? Let's find out as we head on into this game. Cloud9 versus Immortals, game number 2.
Thanks, guys. It's us back again in Cloud9. Looking pretty dominant in game number 1, but it's T-Tigers. It's his turn now to come up with this Krull. But I'm more excited, actually, about Dienzio on this Baron. This guy's an absolute monster, and with Max Green protecting him, what can go wrong?
Well, a lot can go wrong when you have a Grace up against you, especially at level 1. They are going to make the same move that Immortals made the previous game. Rush down that forward healing Treant. Don't want to get locked into a level 2 Krull fight. They're also going to, as a unit, run through and take this Elder Tree on, and unfortunately Immortals weren't in a position to be able to punish that. They're going to try and push the lane in here. Actually, we're going to see a lot of sharing of experience again. There seems to be a new evolution of how teams are playing the early game. Just rush down the enemy's forward Treant and then share one whole rotation between the carries as the captain just essentially tries to block things and stop it moving to tower or moving to turret so they don't lose too many lane minions out here. And it doesn't look like Immortals is going to try and hard push it either. Actually trying to do exactly the opposite. Literally push it as slowly as they physically can. But it's a really good start here for C9. And
they're going to
avoid fighting.
They're going to hand deliver a lot of minions here to Old School. Isn't going to be great for Dienzio. Old School already level 2 here. Dienzio will ding level 2 very, very shortly. But you've got to know Max Green, he's on this Baptiste, and we've seen teams like TSM make it work in the past on this captain role. But again, someone like Joseph who can just afterburn Dienzio, what can he really do now? There is the Holy Nova from Gabe Vizzle, and that'll be first blood going over to Cloud9.
Really wonderfully executed there. Afterburn into a delayed Holy Nova to stop the jump jets from Zio. It's got a very long wind up at level 1, and Gabe was able to lock him up as he attempted to jump jets away. So well coordinated from these guys, and it puts pressure onto this Baron already. We'll get him back in time as they don't shove it to the turret as quickly as they maybe would have liked, but we'll start to put pressure on. I actually think that the let's wait a second.
Oh, hang on a second here. Max Green may be in a little bit of trouble, but the entire squad of Immortals want revenge. They're going to chase Old School. There's a lot of weakness stacks. Old School almost goes down to the smite, but Max Green having to back off here, tanking a little too many minions. Doesn't like 2 recalls are going to come through from Cloud9 as well. Joseph trying to make something work, but Max Green, more than wise, is going to flare out that brush.
Yep, and it will allow Zio just to farm up fairly slowly and readily here. But C9 doing a really good job of basically sharing all of the experience and gold of the map where they can. You know, Joseph not content here to farm his jungle. Actually going to set up a gank.
Oh my goodness, that was almost beautiful. Stun does come through onto Joseph. Oh, that turret shot. It wanted to leave the barrel, but no, it didn't happen. Max Green almost picked up the kill, but other than that, Dienzio more than safe.
I really like what Old School did there. It's something that he does all the time on this Adagio. He heals the large minion. I like to call him, I guess, the equivalent of siege minions. He heals the large minion to mean that Zio couldn't get the last hit under tower or under turret, and that did mean that Zio then ended up losing a pretty large chunk of gold that was going to be shared between him and Max Green. That's, you know, it's a good, decent chunk of gold for those big minions in lane. And Old School does this quite a lot. Heals his own minions to deny last hits readily and easily. You saw he just tried to do it there. but Zio did manage to pick it up regardless. That's a cheeky little play that Old School does quite frequently.
Most frustrating thing in the world. You know what is frustrating as well? Getting Holy Nobered after you try and chase down Old School. T-Tigers just still wants to go for it, but Old School just can't really be taken down at this point, especially when you've got Gabe Vizzle by your side. T-Tigers going to look for another back here. More ganks than ever, really. T-Tigers really want to make it. Really wants to make this Kroll work. Showing Joseph that you can gank pre-level 6.
Yeah, it obviously hasn't been successful. It's hard to take down an Adagio simply because when you heal yourself, obviously you get the healing over time on top, and it's going to slow down Cruel, meaning it's a little bit harder for him to land those basic attacks to stack up for the smite. So you saw Old School managing to escape with a sliver of HP both times, heals up another minion to make it harder for Zio to find that last hit. Keeps doing it. Also does mean he applies Gift of Fire to the enemy wave too. I want to touch on the Max Green's Batiste pick. Very good into a double melee. Obviously the Ordained super strong against a sort of melee composition that wants to try and dive you, but also it functions very similarly to the way that Catherine does in terms of flat CC. Echo means you can get a lot of CC down on the board with your ultimate. You can get a lot of CC down if you want to double Ordain. Here as T-Tiger shows his face a little bit aggressively. Needs to be
a little bit. Gabe Vizzle didn't even hit him once. He was like, I'm just going to leave him. He's too scary for me. Too spooky. He is level 6 though. T-Tigers, will he make something of this? That's the question. Lining up for it, but C9 do know where he is, so they are playing very safe up towards the top of the lane. With Gabe Vizzle not being near that level 6 at all, I mean, not something they want to fight right now. You can imagine when Gabe Vizzle does hit 6, they're going to want to maybe go for a massive all-in engage, but until that point, you can imagine they're just going to play a little bit more reserved coming up against a level 6 Kroll.
Well, especially since they've got no reflex blocks right now, Jaws. They've got no reflex blocks to protect. Well, actually, Joseph just picked one up. They want those reflex blocks to be able to prevent engages from the Cruel ultimate. I imagine Old School, because he's such an easy target for a Cruel, will just pick one up right now, which he has done. So they have got 3 reflex blocks on board, which does shut down T-Tiger's attempt to engage a little bit more. But also, when Max Green hits level 6, there will be multiple forms of CC that the C9 roster has to consider. Gabe Vizzle's Crucibles are going to be on point, or will have to be on point this game, because there's lots of things that he has to consider about blocking.
Dragon still wants to set someone up. Cloud9, undeterred. Joseph's going to get flared out as well. Again, like you said, those Crucibles are going to have to be fairly key. You can imagine Immortals getting a Crucible early wouldn't be such a bad option either.
Nope.
Protecting against the Afterburn and Gabe Vizzle with that Holy Nova. That knock-up can be quite frustrating as soon as Kroll and Max Green do want to get in your face.
And even probably potentially more importantly, the Versa Judgment. One of the only abilities one of the only abilities that really demands, one of the few abilities in Vainglory that demands as T-Tigers jumps in.
T-Tigers comes in, still has from a Hell's Heart. They do find a little bit of damage onto Gabe Vizzle, but that's really about it. Joseph is just farming away his jungle at the moment. T-Tigers has spent a lot of time in this lane. You can already see the advantage that Joseph has in terms of farm here. 42 to 33, hold 10 CS above. A couple of little items in his inventory over T-Tigers.
Max Green has to be careful here. He's trying to defend the wave as it looks like Zio and T-Tigers are actually sharing those back camps, which we've seen before. Max Green face checks here. Oh. Goodness me, that was very, very risky. C9 have the opportunity to put pressure on something like the Goldmine now, which they are going to do. This is a good way of making a very early rotation onto Goldmine. You force an enemy back, and Immortals yet again giving up this free source of gold to C9 for a simple mistake of making a small face check. Didn't result in a kill, but it did result in a net loss of gold, which C9 are going to lap up here and nearly sitting at a 2,000 gold, about 1,500 gold advantage right now for C9, and that's something that really Immortals gave away for free.
Oh, from Hell's Heart. It's going to get blocked. Gabe Vizzle, they get struck with the Ghost Blade, but just shrugged it off. Has got that reflex block to hand, or that Crucible even to hand, to pick up that first item straight after that fountain. I say first item, I just disregard fountain as an item now because every captain buys it first.
Yeah, I think you have to consider that there's very few occasions where captains would ever not buy a fountain first. The only time I've ever seen captains not buy a fountain first is in some situations. This is old Vainglory. Some people would consider a Crucible first against something like a Finn. Oh, and the only other time I've ever seen a Fountain not picked up first was when I think against TSM's Flicker, Rekt went for a Contraption first over a Fountain to try and gain vision control and prevent Flash from making some incredible plays on the Flicker. Didn't work out. So I think most Fountains end up sticking to that Fountain first scenario as the minion candy comes down here onto the wave, puts pressure on this turret.
seeing a lot more of this Minion Candy being used by lots of teams. Immortals used it last time to pressure the turret of Cloud9 and really did help them get that first tier turret down so quickly. And now Cloud9 doing the same thing. They got that trick up their sleeves as well. Have a look at the items though. We have got a Dienzio sitting on that tension bow with the Sorrow Blade, so he is stacking up quite nicely in terms of items. But you look at Old School, he's only just got that alternating current. Hasn't really completed an item, but does have the infusion in his inventory. Davis is going to get found again. Here comes the Ordain. The Holy Nova is going to come through, but it's going to get blocked. Blocked a little bit too late there, but still managed to escape alive. Joseph was down at that shop buying thing.
Forces the Fountain and also forced the Crucible, so they forced two major things. There's the engage.
Oh my god, that's a lot of damage. There comes the ult from Grace, but it wasn't going to be enough. Joseph does enter the fight, does reposition Krull and take him down as well. Beautiful fearsome shade from Max Green to dissuade the rest of Cloud9. Joseph and Gabe just end up fearing. Here comes Dienzio though, maybe a little bit too far forward. Joseph goes underneath his turret. That fountain's not going to be enough for his survival. They're just going to focus that turret now, but Joseph taking a lot of damage. That was very close. Almost sacrificed his own life, but that turret does go down in favor of Cloud9.
Green maybe going to try and snipe this across the wall here. They are going to delay it slightly, and we'll gift it over to Joseph nicely. Joseph at that 2-item spike on the weapon power glaive, tension bow into Poison Shiv. Gives him incredible burst potential and a bit more brawling potential as well. Poison Shiv already builds on the natural lifesteal that the glaive has in his kit, making him very durable in melee sort of engages. And T-Tiger's not sitting on any armor, and Dienzio only sitting on a little bit of armor. So obviously Joseph going to have huge impact with these afterburn ganks. It seemed a lot of hard work from Immortals to get a very small advantage here that C9 were very able to return and then punish for. I think Max Green's going to be heading towards an Echo as Gabe Vizzle already picked up his own, so he'll be able to Echo his ultimate there. Echo becoming such a staple item for captains and roams right now. Unbelievable how that sort of the meta has shifted so hard around an item, which, you know, a couple of weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, it was an interesting build that Starboy built that on his Batiste, but now more and more so we are seeing Echo come out as a third item on captains, and Max Green's working towards his own here. It's a very influential item for Batiste, as Starboy has shown us quite frequently, but obviously super influential here for Gabe Vizzle as well to get a double ultimate out. On top of the Adagio healing, one person will be surviving these fights.
We'll see who that person is. It's like a brawl, a battle to the death. That's exactly what these 3-on-3s will be about. For Cloud9, it's more about that sustained damage, picking off someone with Joseph, but Immortals, they just want to burst someone out ASAP. Speaking of bursting out, that gold mine's going fairly low. Max Green maybe want to steal it with a Mojo, see if he can get it, throws it in, misses it slightly, and it does go over to Cloud9. Now they're going to look for a fight here. Joseph, what target is he going to find? Fearsome Shade comes out from Max Green again, just making sure Joseph doesn't land on top of him.
Well, he actually Fearsome Shade the afterburn there. I think that the Crucible was good, but Joseph afterburned right to the very front of the Fearsome Shade cast, which meant that even though the Crucible was very quick from Gabe Vizzle, it was enough time for the Fearsome Shade to cancel the afterburn, which did actually disengage the fight from Max Green. Really, really sort of heads up use of his ultimate there. But also, again, Immortals giving up things for free on the map jaws. They backed and allowed C9 just another free opportunity to take gold mine, which is going to allow them to hit those item spikes more readily. Metal jacket here for Joseph, and 2 coats of plates for Gabe Vizzle and Old School against a double weapon power composition that is not likely to build a bone saw anytime soon. They are stacking up those resistances.
12.5 minutes in, we are 4,000 gold in the lead, and Cloud9 certainly showing it. That armor, like you said, double weapon power is really going to be maybe the crux of Immortals, and maybe they'll lose it just because of that. I mean, you are seeing it a lot more, and you mentioned it in game number 1 that it is becoming a little bit more popular, especially as Cruel in the jungle is becoming more of a thing than it ever has been. But right now, Cloud9 playing the duo game. Hang on a second. Speaking about duos, that'll be Max Green just trying to get to this fight, or at least try and get out of it. That's a lot of damage, but Gabe Vizzle still more than alive. Iron Cannon is going to come down. Cloud9 can't really exit that Ordained either. That was one kill going over to Immortals already. T-Tiger's almost going down. In fact, a kill is traded over. And Gabe Vizzle, his massive healing ultimate wasn't enough to save Joseph, and now Old School pushing in. Immortals just haven't got the sustained damage, or the burst damage, in fact, to just take out Old School for the moment.
Let's get a Atlas down there. Zio blocked it, I think, though. Or at least someone blocked it. That might... Might have been blocked from it. Might have been blocked. He might have been able to block that from his jump jets. I'm unsure, but I definitely saw a block come out for Immortals. I think want to talk about the Immortals composition in a little bit more detail here, because when you have a Cruel, that naturally lends you to a single target focused team fight. Despite the Baron, with a little bit of his splash damage coming out from his basic attacks, the composition from Immortals has a directive to kill a singular target. You barrel with Cruel onto somebody, Baron provides the burst damage, and then obviously you finish things off hopefully with the smite. That would be the ultimate game plan for Immortals. Against a Echo, Grace, Adagio, that target will become very quickly obvious, won't it? Because the weakness stacks are going to build up, so the target's going to become very quickly obvious. That means you could heal them with Adagio, heal them with Grace, Echo, and heal them with Grace again, making Immortals' initial directive in a team fight very hard to accomplish here, as Goldmine does go over to C9 once more, Immortals unable to contest it. The way I think Immortals actually win is getting Zio to 4 items completed, allowing him to just kite backwards and burst anybody in front of him. I don't think the ability to dive with T-Tigers is going to be something that is necessarily easy to achieve now. It's all going to be about protecting Zio as best you can.
Max Green's done a good job of it thus far. Captain play has been quite phenomenal in all honesty, and his ultimate usage has been very, very key. There's the Tornado trigger, so we are up to 4 items now on DNZO. Has got those level 1 boots, not something we usually see upgraded until later on in the kit for the Baron. Now, we do see Cloud9, once again, they did secure another gold mine. That's 179 gold to each of them, and they're just immediately starting out this Kraken now.
Yeah, and actually because they've had complete vision control and dominance of this central part of the jungle so frequently, as Max Green gets a little bit engaged on Joseph, looking for a flank here, does need to be careful, Immortals, because Joseph can make an afterburn play over the wall. But because Immortals have had no ability to move into this central jungle, they've had no vision control, C9 have been dominant in that area of the map, and Immortals have been essentially sitting back and funneling gold as best they can onto Zio. C9 felt pretty comfortable to just say, hey, wait a second, we can just straight up go and start the Kraken off. And, you know, Immortals will be forced to face check us, and that's kind of what we want Immortals to do, so let's just bring them to us. The Immortals are in a very precarious position now because they need to consistently be looking to keep their eyes on C9 around this Kraken area.
Well, they do. Max Green has got an Echo as well, but it does look like the fight's going to start out here. Afterburn away from Joseph, not in the fight, and T-Tiger's going fairly low. Fountain's going to come through as well to heal them up. But he's not yet. That's actually going to be the big old heal onto Old School. Here comes Joseph in the fight. Does get the stun from the Crawl, and now Gay Visual going fairly low. The heal does come through on himself, and now they want to start the fight. Aaron's going to go down. DNZO sure to follow, and T-Tiger's the only one left alive. Weakness stack's not going to be enough, but that's going to be an ace for Cloud9, the Kraken as well.
Still so hard to take the target down as a 4-item Baron just through all of the healing, the Fountain, the Gift of Fire, the Divine Intervention. So many ways to prevent burst damage, and the fact that the Holy Shield from Grace is going to prevent this Baron burst damage regardless. This composition from C9 protects that one target focus that Immortals are trying to have. It makes it so hard to pierce the first person on the team because they are consistently healed, consistently protected. And that's resulting in the fact that Immortals, I think they need to wait for C9 to make the move. They need to kite backwards. They need to use that Cruel ultimate defensively because it's all on Zio's ability to stay safe and out of range, consistently punishing the C9 roster from afar. He needs level 12, Jaws. Once he gets level 12, you get 3 points in the ultimate, you get the extended range on your basic attacks. It might be enough to give them the space necessary to allow Zio to live in these fights. But right now, they seem to be struggling.
All like game number 1 all over again. Cloud9, they got the Kraken, it's going to march down the lane, and with those 3 turrets going in the lane, just leaves the base wide open for Immortals now. Now Cloud9, all they need to do is find one more fight potentially, and this will be game over. DNZO has hit level 12, has got Infusion. They need to make this work. They need to protect him. Atlas Fulgent does come down. It's going to slow the attack speed, but Cloud9, they are just going to focus this turret. It's going to go down very slowly. T-Tigers from Hell's Heart onto Old School. They're just going to completely ignore it. He does end up blocking it. Joseph using those boots to get a little bit of distance. DNZO cannot find the damage after Old School. The heal's just way too much with the Echo coming out of Gabe Fizzle. Divine Intervention just too much for him. Does get stunned up with a Holy Nova, and now Cloud9 just going to focus that crystal. There goes the... Oh my god. That just didn't even matter at this point. The Kraken might just finish off the base. One more hit will do it. Crashes on it. One more. I take that.
Oh
back.
no!
Oh,
No way! The Crystal Sentry spawning, Jaws. The Crystal Sentry spawning!
Just saved him!
Oh
That
my
was
god.
So close. Cloud9 inches away from ending it right here, right now, but Immortals Crystal Sentry saves them.
That was 3/4 of the way through the animation of the attack from the Kraken, and Crystal Sentry bailing Immortals out at the end there. The extra damage going onto Kraken meant that they were able to take it down. Atlas Pauldron's also, by the way, shutting down T-Tigers, but that was a little bit of an overzealous use from Gabe Visual. I don't think it achieved a huge amount by Atlas Pauldron at that point in the fight. Maybe when they were trying to protect themselves a bit later on, it would have been better, but he jumped in and Atlas Pauldron immediately, meaning that Immortals could just disengage. T-Tigers was happy to disengage and wait it out. But that was a really good defensive fight there from Immortals. But C9 weren't focusing them in a team fight, remember. C9 was just going for the objectives. Now Max Green is going to be forced to try and get as many scout traps down as possible. I don't even think he's got space for them, though. So this is all going to be up to man blocking here for Immortals. There is the opportunity for C9 to seek a backdoor attempt. And Immortals might be forced to make the engage to stop that happening.
Yes, though, well, Joseph has the ability to dash over the wall quite readily in his kit. Now, the NZO, he's finally found a couple of kills. Cloud9, still, this is the dance here. It's not even over the Kraken. They're just dancing around these tri-bushes. Now moving up to the mustache brush. Cloud9 going to get advantage on at that wave. The NZO doing a fair bit. There comes the benediction. Holy Nova doesn't end up missing. Ordain's going to come down. That's a big heal straight onto Old School once again. Fearsome Shade's going to get completely blocked. Iron Cannon coming through as well. Another Fearsome Shade's going to send them all packing. Cloud9 now focusing down Max Green, but meanwhile, Joseph just gets taken out. Immortals coming up pretty big here. T-Tiger still has his From Hell's Heart available. Now, Old School is going to have to force to pop those boots. They are just going to have to back off here rather sharpish as Immortals, they have control of the lane and control of the map.
They're going to go for Kraken here as well. Remember, they have to be so careful about how they approach this simply because, you know, C9 could just run down lane. C9 could literally say, okay, take Kraken, we'll just take your base. But without Joseph available, it might be a bit more difficult to make that happen. A steal coming through would be devastating for C9, though, so they have to be, for Immortals, so Immortals have to be so careful about prioritizing this. Verse of Judgment is there for Old School if he wants to run in and try his luck.
Tigers is going very low. That was almost a steal there from Old School. They're still going to turn their fight on towards DNZO. Once again, that Vision Shade working so well for Max Green. All gave Visual if you fled that brush. That would have been one dead Baron. But Cloud9, they will end up losing the Kraken there, but they do have a lot of damage down to it. Well, they will do in a second as Joseph's making mean work of it, but DNZO is going to meet him in lane.
Yeah, they should be able to get a lot of down here. I think Immortals force back might not even be able to make much of this Kraken, but you are seeing Immortals start to play these team fights with a bit more vigor. Zio is doing a lot of work on that backline. The extended range on his basic attacks giving him a bit more breathing space against this C9 composition, outranging the majority of them. It doesn't even look like Immortals can work with the Kraken here. Kraken won't even get a singular turret. It'll be free gold. Another free infusion refresh here for the C9 composition. Man, but Immortals are in this tough space now. They're in this really tough space where they are going to be forced to fight every time that they can, because if they give C9 a small moment, they can just rush this Vein Crystal. So they have to be super careful, and they have to be the ones forcing the issue, because otherwise, you know, you leave C9 to make the moves, you might end up losing.
Immortals, they're at their peak. The NZO full build right now, or not far from it. Joseph wants to make the play though. He just goes straight in. There comes the Fearsome Shade again, fearing 3 members of Cloud9. This could be the damage they were looking for as well. Iron Cannon comes down, but there comes the Fountain as well. There's going to be a big heal coming from Gabe Bizzle to heal up Old School, but they're just going to target someone else, and they're going to be targeting Joseph. There comes the Versus Judgment, but it's not going to do all too much now. Immortals just chasing down Old School. Jump jets forward from DNZO. Can he find the kill on him? He's very tanky. Ordain is going to stun him up. They're just going to run and gun him down. Turret's going to fall as well, and Immortals finally making these fights work.
I can't work out with a C9 a split decision about should we distract them and run for the Vein Crystal, or should we actually try and fight this outright. But Zio is in that point in the game now where he's got the massive range. He's very hard to be touched by the C9 composition, and Joseph didn't really make much of his first afterburn. Kind of just afterburn and then stood in front of Immortals, and they were able to then start that fight on their terms. Like you said, Fearsome Shade was so good at disengaging the fight. C9 then split up. Gabe Vizzer was trying to threaten Zio. Joseph was backing off. Old School was in the middle saying, well, what do I actually do here? And then Zio just cleaned up with T-Tigers just able to do so much sort of defensive work for him. And that's really, I mean, this is looking really good right now for Immortals. Zeo just picked up his Journey Boots and his Metal Jacket. T-Tigers has got a couple of defensive items on board now as well, including the Atlas Pauldrons.
They need to find the fight, and they need to find it now. Joseph has been the biggest catalyst for Cloud9. Like, he is making these fights happen, but as soon as he dashes in, that Fearsome Shade comes out, he is instantly disengaged, not on his own whim, though. Immortals, they're going to spy out Cloud9. DNZO is super scary, same with T-Tigers. Now, will Cloud9 go in on this one? Yes, they will. There comes the Ordained. Joseph's going to run
Great fear!
Some shade again. But DNZO is going to get repositioned here. That's going to be one member down for Cloud9 already. Old School ends up falling, and now once again, Joseph is going to go down as well. Tried to make the move, but it just did not work. And Immortals coming back in this game. This might not be game, or it might be. I don't know. This is the question. Gabe Vizzle's the last one alive. Can he do anything?
Still Fountain available. Still Atlas Pauldrons for both T-Tigers and Max Green. It's a short cooldown, I know. Still Crucible there and 30 seconds to work with for Immortals. This could be close. They've got the waves coming in. Not an ace-buffed wave, but enough to get the work done on these Vein Crystal turrets. This might be Immortals leveling the score right now.
Oh, 30 seconds on the time for I Love Joseph. One turret is going to fall. Immortals focus all their might on the second. There comes the Fearsome Shade to get Gabe Vizzle out of there. Game number 3 is going to come up right now. Excalibur Immortals taking the victory on what seemed like a loss in the early game, but bringing it around at the 25-minute mark.
Oh, it was the level 12 for Zeo. He got to that point in the game where he had that massive range advantage over pretty much anyone. I love the fact that he was always so careful about the use of his jump jets. He waited for the opportune moment to either disengage, block something useful, then reposition in these fights, making it very difficult. Because once C9 has used their initial engage off the Afterburn or the Benediction, then he was able to then disengage and reposition. Not much else can threaten him beyond that point. He was able to just play so nicely in the back line of these fights. And C9, I think they might have missed their opportunity. And, well, Immortals, they tie up 1-1. I'm sure Suijay's going to be happy.
I'm sure he is. And we'll get his opinion right now as we jump straight back to the desk.
What an absolute edge of the seat game right there. Literally a millisecond away from losing that when the Kraken was mid-animation.
Mid-swing.
And this Sentry saves it. The Sentry, as well as Immortals, managing to take that fight. Where do we even begin with this one, gentlemen? Because that was a roller coaster of a game.
That was absolutely ridiculous. You know, we talk about how we've had games be so incredibly close before, and this was yet another one to add to that list. That was absolutely phenomenal, and the ability of Immortals to not give up. It's so easy, especially when you're already down 1-0, to be put in that situation. Just be like, all right, well, we just lost this one. We don't have a way to come back now. But they didn't give up. They continued fighting and turned it around.
So Suijay, talk me through what was going on in the early game here, because it looked like Cloud9's game for most of from the early game at least.
Yeah, Cloud9 had such a good early game. I mean, Gabe did such a good job. He was in the top bush. Old School was farming safely. Crow wasn't able to get a lot of early game ganks and get a kill onto Old School and slow him down. So Cloud9 then got the lead. They got a first turret. They got a free gold mine. And I thought this might be a repeat of game 1, and it was for the most part. And finally, you know, Immortals was able to, once Baron got online with 4 items, they were then able to make plays. And then the key was Gabe had Atlas before Immortals did. Once Immortals then got Atlas, it was more of an even matchup because the Atlas was huge to counter the cruel slow, and the fearsome shades from Max were pretty important.
Yeah, Max had some incredible fearsome shades in that game, but there was a key moment in that game that turned everything on its head. Let's take a closer look at the moment where Immortals cling onto life by their fingertips here.
This was absolutely ridiculous. Again, a great team fight from the side of Immortals, but the Crystal Sentry spawning, applying a little bit of extra damage onto the Kraken, and right here, just one swing away.
Look at that.
On the downswing. It gets stopped.
Literally
that was
microseconds.
Insane. I can't believe that happened. I just could not believe that actually happened. I
was
like, this game's over. We're like on our headsets. We're all ready to go. I'm like, this is over. I'm like, and then whoa, that just happened.
Very reminiscent of the 33 HP from Europe, but we'll get into that if we get in similar situations in Europe. But then we saw, obviously, Immortals manage to get back on top of things, and their team fighting late in the game after that point, like, they couldn't afford a single death at that point. or they would lose the game. Like from that point, if Cloud9 gets the first kill in a team fight, they just rush and end the game. Immortals didn't let a single death go through. They played it near perfectly. I mean, these team fights were just executed superbly.
Yeah, the key thing on this fight was Max Green with the Fearsome Shade. As you can see, there is going to be that afterburn comes through. It waits a little bit, then hits onto the Kroll. It's not really the target you're looking for. You need to get onto Dienzio, but a big 3-man fear pushes the team away and allows them to just burst down the glaive. And this forces out so much from the side of Cloud9.
Yeah, these fights were just ridiculous. And you can see Dienzio quite comfortably sat at the back. T-Tigers putting out enough pressure that they cannot get onto this Baron. They cannot focus him down. And once those afterburns were on cooldown, it became very difficult for Cloud9 to do much. And then it was all about Immortals cleaning shop. And this was the point at which, when they killed both the carries, I feel like this fight was the true turning point where they actually started to take the advantage, where it felt like Immortals were actually the favorites.
While they did hold on at the Kraken push, that was the fight where it was like, wow, Immortals can win this. Like, it wasn't just Immortals can hold on, it was Immortals can actually find the victory. There was another fight, I believe, the final fight of the game, really, right after that one, where the Fearsome Shades came out, and we've talked about it multiple times. When Fearsome Shade with an Echo, if you use it properly, you can split the team entirely, and that is exactly what Max Green did. I believe this was that fight. As you can see, when the Fearsome Shades come out, first one gets blocked, but the second one pushes the glaive away from the rest of the team. They're able to isolate Joseph and win the fight.
Yeah, that where Old School was actually a little bit opposition. He was frontlining for some reason, and Grace wasn't. So that was an interesting engagement from Cloud9, which then let Immortals take advantage of that and focus down Old School immediately.
And that's what separates the good teams from the great teams, right? Is when you see a mistake by the enemy, you have to punish that. You have to take every advantage that you can find. We have to stop talking about that game and move on with the series, because we could talk about that game all day long, but we need to get on into the draft. What is the expectation here? Do we feel like the Baron is something that needs to be banned here? Was Dienzio the problem, or was it more about execution once again? Because we kind of decided it was execution in game one.
The Baron wasn't a full-on problem until very late in the game. Cloud9 clearly knew how to deal with the Baron and how to play around it and prevent it from being that massive issue until we got really late in the game. So I don't think it necessarily is something that has to be taken away, but it is something that Cloud9 will have to think about. And but being on B side, I feel like it's even less of a priority, because when you're on B side, you have the ability to counter the Baron pretty heavily with your own picks.
All right, so we're swapping sides once again in this draft. Do you expect a similar draft to game one here, Suijay, coming out from
Yeah,
these
I think
teams?
it'll be a similar draft. I think they might adapt to game two. Looks like they're going to ban Grace, because Gabe's Grace was really good. So I think this is a good kind of adjustment to the draft. And this is what good teams do, right? They look at the most recent games, and that's the most recent draft history, and then they adjust the draft based on that.
Well, Catherine, once again, going to be banned away. And fairly unsurprising at this stage with how strong the silence from Catherine can be, and just how strong Catherine as a presence in a fight can be. Catherine, definitely one of these heroes that currently can turn the tide of battle on her own.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those heroes that not only that, but can also hard counter a lot of what is considered to be strong. We're going to see Lyra and then Vox picked up. So no Baron, no Idris right away. There's going to be the Baron ban. Immortals should leave the Idris open as an option for themselves. Idris versus Vox is a matchup that can really go either way. It's not, neither one of them has a clear-cut advantage, but whichever one does pull a lead early on does end up having a massive advantage.
Yeah,
Fortress ban here.
Yeah, they're going to adjust the draft. So Immortals is adjusting the draft so that, again, the Fortress was picked on Cloud9 as a second pick here to counter the Lyra. So now they've picked the Lyra and banned the Fortress away. So now that leaves Cloud9 with a few options. They may pick the Koshka, which is risky into a Lyra composition. But they also might give the Koshka over to Immortals too. So this is a very interesting dilemma for Cloud9 here. But I think they'll probably lock in either a Lance or Arden, most likely. But I think Gabe will probably lean towards a Lance here. But they may even surprise us with a Baptiste or Finn, who knows. But I think the Lance part makes the most sense for Gabe Visuals especially.
Yeah, we'll see where they are going to go with this one. Certainly, a captain lock-in feels safest right now because it gives away the least about what you want to achieve. Unless it's something like a Fortress. That does tend to telegraph what you're trying to do. But the Koshka is going to be the lock-in in the end for Cloud9, going straight for the aggression.
Yeah, very likely going to be another aggressive early game that they're going to try and run. it leads even more towards either the Ardent or the Lance of that for Cloud9, because they love to pair those two together to try and take over the jungle early on. So Immortals, they're going to need something that's going to be able to either duel against them early on, or just something that can survive and deal with being pushed in aggressively.
Yeah, Koshka with an exceptionally high win rate right now, so 63.3% win rate. Koshka definitely making her mark on the meta once again. This was a similar situation last season as well. We saw Koshka towards the end of the season really ramping up, but the Kestrel going to be the lock-in coming through here for Immortals. Something that can be flexed to both jungle and lane, but I'm sure this final pick will tell us where that's going to go.
Yeah, I think given the Koshka pick, I think that Baptiste may make sense here, because Baptiste is good against Koshka. He also can protect the Kestrel. And with Lyra and Baptiste, they're both kind of high sustain. So Samuel or Baptiste would make the most sense for Immortals here for the A-side draft.
Yeah, you want to have something that is that counter-engage, or the anti-engage, so to speak. So the Baptiste fits that bill perfectly. We saw at the Unified Live Championship in London that when Koshka was picked up, Baptiste was the hard counter to her. It was why we started to stop seeing Koshka all the time, because Baptiste was available. But now this also makes the Lance pickup a little bit trickier as well. And so they're going to go for the Crow. The TSM special being pulled out by Cloud9 here. Oh boy.
Yeah, the chain CC from the Koshka captain, the Krull in the jungle here. We've seen this once before. Cloud9 lost to this composition when TSM played it. The question is, can Cloud9 reenact it in the same way that TSM managed to pull it off? Because FlashX tweeted about this composition, saying that this requires the utmost coordination to be able to pull a composition like this off.
Yeah, and are they going to do Koshka captain or Crow captain here? It might be a Crow captain, because Koshka is CP and Vox is CP, or they may do double tension bow with Crow, right? So let's see what comes out, but they do have to have that synergy like TSM did to execute this composition.
All right, so what is it Immortals are going to be trying to achieve in this game? How do they have to play around this?
It's going to be about using the Baptiste and the Kestrel to counter the engages. Let them come into you, and then hit them with the stuns from the active camo, use the Ordained, and use the Fearsome Shade effectively.
All right, we'll see if they're going to be able to make it happen. We're heading into the third game of our first North American series of the day. It's Cloud9 versus Immortals. Let us know who you want to take this series on Twitter using that hashtag Vainglory8. But it's time to head on into this one. The final game begins between Immortals and Cloud9.
Thank you very much, guys, once again. And what a game. What a series, even, to start off the week here at Scoundrel. We're going to game number 3. And hang on a second, Gabe Vizzle, he's on that Koshka.
Yeah, again, this can be super aggressive early on because of the base damages that Koshka has from her twirly death. But again, you're going to see this A-side rotation, make a very aggressive move into the B-side jungle. Basically deny some of the early dueling that you can get around the Elder Treant. Deny potential level 2 brawls between the Koshka Krull and the what would have been the Lyra and the Baptiste. Old School did his best here to try and push this in. It's going to force Zio to actually not share the backs and move up to lane, and that's going to allow Max Green to actually end up sharing the gold and experience with T-Tigers as they move through those back camps. Zio had to move to lane because Old School did a really good job of shoving that in, and you don't want to lose too many waves to the turrets, even if you are, trying to share those back camps.
All right, not a lot of ambient gold for Zio then, but he does pick up a few of these lane minions. It's fairly important for him, and scaling up nice and well. There we go. He gets level 2, he's going to back off now as well. And let's have a look how these teams are going to interact in team fights here. TSM, Cloud9, FlashX tweeted out, yeah, it requires an immense amount of coordination. I think Cloud9 are going to be one of those teams that can pull this Koshka captain off. How is it going to interact here with Immortals team fight?
Well, Immortals, I'm hoping that Max Green is going to prioritize a Crucible after the Fountain. It's something that we saw Gabe Vizzle not do versus TSM, and it might have cost them huge swings in team fights that TSM were able to land consistent forms of CC against. I also think that Baptiste is a much needed pick into this composition, specifically because the Fearsome Shade is going to be so good at disengaging this C9 composition. C9 are all about level 6, turn that trigger, get the engage, chain CC onto a key target like Zio or Tigers himself. But if T-Tigers is positioned correctly or can reflex block before he gets that Fearsome Shade off, then you are looking at a potential for a great disengage from Immortals. And if the disengage comes through, Koshka Captain is about you know, as useful as a... I don't know. I can't think of one of those analogies. It's too late for me. But essentially, going to be pretty useless. So yeah, Koshka Captain needs to be always aggressive, always seeking to put damage down or using her ultimate to lock someone down. If you can disengage her and have her run away from you, then it is basically a shooting range for DNZO. You should be able to take her down quite quickly. So again, I think Fearsome Shade's going to be super influential here. T-Tiger's is going to have to be placing that and using that at exactly the right times. I also think Lyra, with her Bright Bulwark, is going to be super, incredibly useful at disengaging or at least slowing the engages of these compositions. So I think keep your eyes. I think this is a better composition against the Koshka Captain that Immortals have pulled out here compared to the likes that C9 had against TSM.
You know, I was about to say the same thing. Immortals have drafted so well here. Gabe Vizzle and Joseph, though, going for some cheeky steals. Ordain does come through, and Joseph is going to get stunned up. He's actually popping the boots here, but Max Green is going to meet them. Bright Ball is going to snail them all up. Uh-oh, Joseph's going to get jumped on here. T-Tigers running at him, does dash towards the outer tree, and might just get away, though, but T-Tigers still wants to chase him. That bad mojo slowing him up very, very slowly. He's trapped in the Ordain now, just jumps to Max Green, but that will be first blood going over to T-Tigers. Gabe Vizzle in a little bit of trouble here, but T-Tigers doesn't want anything to do with him. It's actually going to steal away some backcaps here.
Yeah, great aggressive start here, putting pressure on a Koshka. Cruel composition early on means that you are going to make it slightly softer blows when it comes to level 6, but again, don't lax on your item prioritization here for Immortals. I want to see reflex blocks, I want to see them early, especially as you're heading towards level 6 for Joseph. So I think Zio and T-Tigers are going to need their own. I really want to see Max Green hit that Crucible as early as possible because you want to make sure you're giving no breathing space to C9 here as Immortals. You want to make sure that there's no way that they can find the engages as readily as TSM were against C9. Because remember, if they can't find the engages, the composition doesn't really work. I mean, what does Koshka Captain actually offer to the table other than locking someone down and good high base damage on the Twirly Death? Not a lot here, Jaws. So that's where Immortals are going to be placing their priority, making sure these engages are very difficult to pull off from C9, either by using the instantaneous active camo from Zio, the Crucibles, the reflex blocks, and also, like we said, the Bright Bulwark and the Fearsome Shade.
Not at that point yet, though. T-Tigers is only level 5. Level 6 on the horizon, however. T-Tigers trying to make moves in the mid lane, but no, C9 are just going to back off, and Old School and Gabe Vizzle, they are fairly mobile. That's something we've got to keep in mind. Sonic Zoom and Gabe Vizzle just being naturally quite fast with that Koshka pick is going to lead them to safety more often than not, but T-Tigers has hit the level 6. The ambient XP from the lane has helped him out massively, and now we'll see if they want to make a play here. Joseph has only just hit that level 6 as soon as I got those words out my math, so here we go. Cloud9 and Immortals now. They're at their breaking point, and they might want to try and fight each other right now.
They've got a Fountain, they've got Tension Bow for Joseph, both Old School and Joseph, and Vizzle have picked up reflex blocks here.
T-Tigers has been found. He just gets jumped on. There's the From Hell's Heart. There's the smite. There's the kill. Joseph will take that one, and they are just going to secure themselves a Crystal Sentry as well. Didn't see that one coming in Scoundrel, and I don't think T-Tiger saw it either.
No, again, the literal sense of the word there, Jaws, that the vision hasn't been excellent here from Max Green, hasn't had the opportunity to land some pretty influential scout traps. He's going to get dived on here.
Oh, hey, Max Green, how's it going? Fountain's going to get popped. That Sidra doing a lot of work as well. Gabe Vizzle, however, was tanking up those turret shots. As Old School and Joseph did back away nice and safely, but T-Tigers is here in the lane. Max Green fairly low, though, so I can't imagine they'll look for a fight now.
So C9 picked up reflex blocks in every carry because they know how important it is that Fearsome Shade doesn't land in the early game to just disengage all of the fights that C9 are trying to find. Really, really sort of, I think, sensible item buy, and also very good against the Ordained. Like I said, though, this is a composition that has the tools to deal with that kind of engage from Immortals. They've got the Bright Bulwark, like we said, the healing on a singular target from Lyra, the Sigil obviously so important. It does look like C9 are hungry for this, though. They keep looking to put pressure onto any target that they can. They might even go for tower dives here as they shove this wave relentlessly in.
Oh, Joseph throws his From Hell's Heart in the mix here. They find Max Green. TNT going fairly low. Nice active camo stun onto Old School. But he is able to Sonic Zoom away from that turret.
Oh, I really would have liked to see T-Tigers. As soon as the ultimate from Cruel came out, I would have loved to see T-Tigers just slam down the Fearsome Shade. But again, C9, so good at capitalizing on even the smallest advantage, are going to take the gold miner away for free here because Immortals just cannot contest it. Excellent rotations around just taking one kill in a team fight here in the mid game. And they are going to get a decent payout for it as well. something that C9 are just so good at doing. They don't let anything go unturned on the map. When they find an opportunity to get something, they will take it. Reflex Book out. Sorry, I was going to say Reflex Book are now all up for Immortals, Jack.
Oh, yes, they are. Exactly what they've done. They've taken the goal, they've taken the lead in that sense as well. Got about 1,000 in their pockets, not as big as it's been thus far. But Joseph, using that From Hell's Heart on cooldown, it seems, up in a couple of seconds. Let's keep an eye on that one. Let's also keep an eye on Gabe Vizzle, has just dinged level 6. There's the Candid Frenzy straight on to OT Tigers. That's not where you want to be. Again, just gets taken out. That lockup from C9, just proving all too much from Hell's Heart from the Candid Frenzy, enough to take him down.
Immortals' positioning for me just was too aggressive. You know, you are a composition that will do well by just staying back and allowing C9 to make the move. Maybe that would have been too lackluster. Again, C9 taking the opportunity to get at least a bit of pressure here onto the Crystal Sentry. So easy to capitalize for C9. They're going to get this so quickly and readily. And unfortunately, Immortals can't punish because they don't have the portal. But Max Green looks like he wants to chase this down. He's very close to level 6. He just needs to take one of those minions, but Cloud9 won the fight and they want it now. Fearsome Shady is going to get blocked. DNZ on the back line doing free damage. We'll see what goes on next. Oh, T-Tigers just gets erased from the fight. Joseph picks him up with a smite. And that will be another kill for Old School as well. Dashing forward, and 2 members of Immortals fall, and Max Green run for the hills. Oh, they were so over-eager to try and punish C9, but you cannot make that move into a composition like that. The one weakness of C9 is they have to close the gap against a Lyra with Bright Bulwark. They have to get through the Fearsome Shade. They have to try and lock down DNTO through an active camo, which you can instantaneously activate at some point soon. Why make it easy for them and then run directly into them? I understand the reasoning there. That was like, okay, they're low. They just came off the back of a team fight. We might be able to punish them for taking our Crystal Sentry. But you didn't actually force them to use many cooldowns in the last fight, or at least not any cooldowns that you had up to give you the advantage. They just made it so easy for C9 to turn around onto them and say, okay, well, you literally ran at us. And it also made the angling of the Fearsome Shade so hard for T-Tigers because he only managed to land it on 1 or 2 members of C9. They split up and played around it so nicely, and Immortals are on the back foot already. Joseph wants to make some ink work here as well. Bright Bulwark has gone down for Immortals. That's a big tool. Ordain does come through. Here comes the only cap from Frenzy. They're just going to just pin Dientio to the floor. Joseph picks him up. And that'll be another kill going over to Cloud9. They're just going to chase down T-Tigers. He ends up falling. Old School almost fell as well, but that ace buff will heal him up. Immortals falling by the wayside now is 8-1. That's like in the Immortals train, Scoundrel, the steam has just all run out. Oh, they disrespected the Vox Silence. The Vox Silence came through. They managed to chain it into 2 ultimates onto Zio, the only target that is really crucial to lock down in these fights. I don't know, maybe Max Green has to consider blocking the Silence to stop the easy engages coming out from C9. You know, if the individual reflex blocks are there, they should be able to stop the initial engage from the Koshka. Need to think about that because the Crucible wasn't even used in that fight by Max Green. Maybe the silence is maybe more of a priority for them because that silence from Old School means that it's so easy for C9 to chain their CC onto a target that can't use anything because they're silenced. Did it so well there. I mean, C9
hard for Immortals just disengage here at this point.
Yeah, I think the problem was Immortals got so eager to try and be aggressive with this composition. I don't think you need to be aggressive with this composition. If you just wait this out, hit certain item spikes, play at range, just try and clear waves as best you can. Like the C9 composition falls off really, really hard. You get Atlas finished for Max Green after you finish your Crucible. Great, you've shut down Joseph now. Really important item. You disengage. Every time they try and force an ultimate, you pop T-Tiger's ultimate, make them forced to use the Crucible, and then you can use whatever else resources you have to slow them down, like the Bright Bulwark, the slow from the Bad Mojo, the Ordained. But Immortals got too eager to try and punish C9 in situations where they probably couldn't have done so. And C9 have just turned around and said, okay, well, we'll take these free fights.
Now they're looking all too free. Now let's have a look at Cloud9. Their itemization right now. Joseph, he's picked up the Aegis. He's got the Tension Bow. He's got the Poison Shiv. He's just running and gunning at this moment. And Old School's just left completely free on the back line to stack up that breaking point as well. Immortals maybe stepped a little bit too far in their own jungle. There's the passageway followed through actually by 2 members. And one left on the sidelines here. Nice silence onto 2 members of Immortals. They're still chasing him down. Good stun onto Old School. There's going to be a fountain to heal everybody up. And now Dientio's left completely alone. Gets slaughtered by Old School as he picks up his 4th kill of the game. Cloud9 As soon as Immortals step anywhere near their jungle, they just pounce on them and take the kills.
Yeah, at this point, C9 can continuously search for fights, and I think Immortals are just really trailing in terms of their own damage output and defensive capabilities. They split there. That was really, really important for C9. They split Zio up. What really you want to happen is make maximum effectiveness out of all of your defensive cooldowns, including the Sigil, including the Bright Bulwark, and that's by having everybody stacked on top of each other. There isn't really a drawback by stacking here for Immortals, apart from the fact that the Vox resonance bounces will hurt a little bit harder. But this is a weapon power Vox, so you're not overly worried about resonance bounces against him because it's obviously not the primary form of his damage. You're only going to get the base damages coming out, which are pretty low. By splitting, you actually make it easier for C9 to then focus down onto one target. I think Immortals need to stay grouped to make absolute prime use of all of those defensive abilities that you have.
Decent gold payout collected.
Absolutely. And Bright Bulwark being one of those. And we spoke about it in the earlier stages of the game, and we said that's going to be a big disengage tool, along with the Fearsome Shade, the Passageway as well. But C9 just all too readily jumping on one member, like you said, just destroying and deleting them. And it's very hard for Immortals to really do anything after that. That Vox Silence doing absolute wonders for Old School and the crew. Now Cloud9, they take another gold miner. They get priority in the lane here as well. They're going to go shop for a couple of items. Or at least core bits of items. A couple of infusions coming through as well for Gate Fizzle and Old School. Now, they're just prowling around in Immortals jungle. They've already taken it and erased that Crystal Sentry. So they've got pretty much free reign over this side of the map.
And Immortals have to be so careful here. T-Tigers, he might step to his death if he's not careful. I believe they know what's going on here.
He does spot them, yeah. Here comes the ultimate coming through for Cruel. Gate Fizzle just get really low, though, but it doesn't matter. T-Tigers already falls, and the Passageway is going to get used from Max Green. Old School going to follow that one through. And in fact, the whole of Cloud9 are going to follow it through. Dienzio, last member alive, goes into the active camo, but Old School, undeterred, is just going to kill him under the turret.
Ace.
Does end up trading 1-for-1 in that instance, but turned out to be a 1-for-3. And now Cloud9, they are kind of stuck in this base. So, yeah, well, Old School's not. Joseph is a little bit, but still finding that ace buff minions are going to come through, and that'll be another turret for Cloud9.
Max Green didn't even use the Crucible in the mid-fight either. He saved it until the very end at death, I believe. And I don't think Fountain was up because that didn't get used in that fight either. So Immortals, again, just struggling to contend with this hard engage coming out for C9. They aren't... I think they had an opportunity in the early game, especially when they still had their first turret up, but now C9 are just punishing them. They took that Crystal Sentry, and what is so good about taking Crystal Sentry early on as well is there isn't really a retreat, or isn't really a refuge for the Immortals composition anymore. They can't hide in their own jungle. They have to be super careful about where they position. And by taking that Crystal Sentry, a chase down composition like this has a lot more space to work with. It reduces the map pressure that Immortals have, meaning that C9 can essentially chase them wherever they want. No longer are they worried about a Crystal Sentry ruining their day. They can like run them down all the way to their base at this point in time.
That is such a scary prospect. And Kraken's going to get started up as well. It's about halfway there to capture. So I say half, it's about a third now. There we go. Immortals coming through. They do throw a bad mojo out, but that's not exactly where it is. And that's going to be taken by Cloud9. 2-man silence. In fact, 3-man silence. Bright Water comes down, stopping Cloud9's advances. Fearsome Shade's going to get blocked. Gate Fizzle still holding on to that ultimate. Now goes in to use it. Yaimi Cannon Frenzy on the back line. T-Tigers gets taken out, and that'll be Old School going down as well. No, Dienzio going down as well. Even Max Green on the run. Cloud9 find 2. Max Green, the last member alive. Wartreads is going to get pot from Joseph. Old School is going to chase him down as well. They're trying to find this ace. That Kraken's marching down the lane as well. This could spell the end for Immortals.
Old School's just going to find Max Green here. I think this could be... I mean, basically, if they take out Lyra, there's no way to defend and no way to prevent an engage coming out for C9. So taking her out later means that even if the respawns for Immortals come through, then she's not going to be there to defend them. It's not a bad play here for Old School. You might look silly, but it's not a bad play because it means this end is pretty much guaranteed.
Well, turret 1 destroyed. There's the From Hell's Heart on to Dienzio. T-Tigers going to get that ordained off on Joseph. He's going to block with the reflex block. Now they have to turn their attention towards that Kraken. It might just take this turret, Scoundrel. I don't know here. They haven't got enough damage. Cloud9 just re-entering the base here. Like you said, this might just guarantee it. T-Tigers and Dienzio, they are very healthy, but Cloud9 is just going to focus. The Vein Crystal, it's going to go down. Immortals know it. Cloud9, they take the series.
it got to the point in this game, Jaws, that whilst the composition from Immortals was pretty decent at protecting from these kind of engages, that they were just so many item spikes behind that even if they wanted to play it perfectly, they didn't have the resources at their disposal capable of preventing what the C9 composition wanted to do. You know, you were an Echo out on Gay Vizor. Once the Echo came out, you know, it made it even harder to defend against these kind of things. It just resulted in a snowball, and once you get a snowball, you get the item spikes behind, you get the level spikes behind. It's very hard to make your way back into the game.
Well, just like TSM, Cloud9 made the Koshka captain work. That is the end of the series. Cloud9 taking it 2-0. But, no, 2-1 even, sorry, not to disregard Immortals at all, but let's throw it back over to the desk, and they can break down that series a little bit more.
An incredibly close series, but a pretty one-sided final game. Cloud9 managed to take that one 2-1 in the end, using TSM's own composition that they used against Cloud9. And honestly, it looked a tiny bit shaky to start the game right at the very beginning, but once they got that ball rolling, it seems unstoppable.
Yeah, it was very, very difficult for the Immortals to really find much of anything once they started to fall behind. And it's because this double weapon composition, especially when you throw the Koshka in there as well, it hits very early item spikes, and then those spikes just continue to add up. Like you stay ahead once you get ahead with this composition. The tension bows make it very difficult to even itemize against it, because you want to build armor, but that armor is going to be less effective than usual because of the double tension bow. There was no armor that came out from the side of Immortals, with the exception of on Max Green, and that causes a problem because that early game spike happened. You don't have any armor to deal with it, and all of a sudden you're just finding yourself getting snowballed on.
And to illustrate the lead that Immortals had, by 10.5 minutes into, by Cloud9 had, sorry, by 10.5 minutes into the game, Immortals had lost all 3 of their Crystal Sentries. That is an obscene level of snowball coming out.
Yeah, Cloud9 played the objective game so well. And there was a critical fight at the 8-minute mark where Immortals chased into them, and then they're a dive composition, so you don't want to chase into them. You want to bait the dive and then focus the front line and just kite really well and then block all the CC, which is extremely hard to do against a Cruel and a Koshka. And what Cloud9 did really well is they comboed the Vox Silence with the Koshka ultimate really well, because Vox silences you for 0.7 seconds, and during that period, Koshka can then stun you.
Yeah, and it denies you being able to block that stun at that point. I Love Joseph, going to be the MVP for this one. In the first game, his glaive was exceptional, really, really well played by him. And then obviously bringing in that crawl in that final game, doing work for his team and just constantly on point with his CC.
Yeah, and even in the second game, when they weren't victorious, they was still, I Love Joseph was setting up so many plays and had Cloud9 in position to win that game. So just really well played game all around by Cloud9, but it was I Love Joseph being able to set up these situations where they could find these kills, I think, that earned him that MVP title.
So I have a question for you guys now. This question chills me to my core. Is this composition with Captain Koshka, now